Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. This Self-Validation Friday. We're wrapping up the Wrestle series. The weight we carry. Today we're talking about the wrestle that we carry in our life, right? And life is an acronym: our love of self, our interactions with others, our focus, and our emotions. Today we're talking about that Russell. The wrestle we have in our bodies, right? And releasing these emotions. So the wrestle with release. Now, I'm gonna give this caveat. I've been saying Russell all week. It's not a name Russell, it's like wrestling, like how the fight that we have. Okay. So this series is called the weight we carry in our life series. And I'm going through a 7-week series where I talk about each letter in the word weight is in my opinion a weight that we carry. And this week is I do feel that, and with a lot of clients that I work with, there's a weight that comes with the wrestle of life, with the fight of life, right? Just I think that sometimes we have expectations, sometimes we have some core beliefs that we have to update, we have to really question, is it true or not, right? And that creates this kind of fight with our love of self, this fight that we have with other individuals, our fight with our focus, like what we choose to focus on, which we talked about yesterday, and control, and then this weight, um, or this fight with our emotions, what to keep, what to release, right? And so today we're talking about this fight in our body, or this wrestle in our body with releasing these emotions. Okay. So our guiding quote for today is: suppressed emotions, they don't disappear, right? Suppressed emotions don't disappear. It disguises itself as fatigue, right? So a lot of times we are saying, oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I had a long day at work, this and that. And truly it could be this suppressed emotions. Thank God it's Friday. Good morning, little big brother. Thank God it's Friday. I'm with you on that, right? It has been I think it has been a full week, a very long and full week. And so, yes, thank God it's Friday. Last weekend, my son he had what? Um, what is that called? Big brother, little big brother. They had homecoming, right? And so that was a long weekend last weekend, and then coming into this week, just with some transitions in business and things like that. So I would say it's been a long week. Okay. So again, we're talking about my big question to you is: what emotions feel unsafe for you to express? Either you were taught that, right, or something happened, but what emotions feel unsafe for you to express, and where do you think you can feel that in your body? Where do you think you could feel that in your body? Now, I was just had this conversation with one of my clients the other day, and I was saying how I used to be like the love person. Like every time I walked out my house or went and visited people, I would be like, I love you, I love you, I love you, right? I love you. And I would give them a hug. This is like in my 17, 18, 19 years, right? I was dating a guy, and I got really close to his family, or I got close to all the families of the guys I dated. I always, ended up, borrowing their moms, and then their moms stayed my moms. Um, but this particular individual, I was young, and I go over to his house, and he has a family, and I love his family and the kids, and the kids are like, hi, Sheila. And every time I would leave, I'll be like, I love you, I love you, I love you. Well, I ended up getting in a relationship, and and this is to answer this question: what emotions feels unsafe to express, and where do you feel it in your body? And I remember then I started to date this guy, and I really liked him, and I felt like, he was the guy or whatever. And I'm a person like I do love. I will love fast. I feel like love is the safest emotion for me to express, because that's like I gave it my all. Well, anyway, in this situation, I would say I love you, I love you. And one day this guy was like, well, didn't you say that yesterday or something like that? And I'm like, yeah, I said it yesterday and I want to say it today. And, you know, but what started to happen was this individual really started to, in a sense, made me feel uncomfortable. Or he didn't make me feel, I started to feel uncomfortable with expressing, right, the level of love that I had, right? It was as if it was awkward or wrong. So I'm talking to my client about it, and I'm using it in perspective with a situation she was going through, but I didn't realize that I had started feeling uncomfortable with expressing my love until one day I go visit my old boyfriend's house, and I'm over there and I'm visiting his mom and stuff like that, and I'm about to get in the car, and I go and I'm like walking down the driveway, and the little kids, they run up the driveway and they're like, Sheila, you didn't say you love us. And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't, right? So what had happened was, because this individual, I was around them a lot, and at that point, I guess you could say we was living together, right? Because it had become uncomfortable in that situation for me to express love, like it had literally shut down that in pretty much every area of my life. So I was saying bye and kissing people and things like that, but I wouldn't say I love you. And this little kid come up the driveway and reminded me of that. And I remember feeling in that moment something got to change, right? Like I am changing, and I don't feel safe, right, expressing this love without feeling some rejection or not feeling it being met. Yeah. So my question for you is, what emotions feel unsafe for you to express, and where do you feel that in your body? Now, at the time, I wasn't in my body, so I really probably couldn't tell you where I felt it, but I probably felt it in my heart space. I'm sure it came up. A lot of my emotions come up in my chest, in this area, so either my throat chakra or my heart or my solar plexus. That's pretty much where I will carry a lot of my emotions. And how do I know that I'm carrying it there? Because I feel it, right? I feel it on my shoulders. Sometimes my arms get a little stiff. I can get what's called a tennis elbow, where my elbow starts to feel like I can't like move it a lot, right? And that's when I know that I'm expressing, that I'm storing some emotions in my body. So I'm asking you, and I gave that one specifically because I think that people feel like anger and sadness and things like that. But sometimes it's these expensive emotions that we don't always feel comfortable with expressing, or don't feel like it's safe to express, right? Joy, happiness, contentment, right? From fear of being judged, or like that survivor's remorse emotion. So let's look over all the spectrum of emotions and see what emotion feels unsafe to express. For you to express, and where do you feel that in your body? Okay, it's Self-Validation Friday, and I want to say good morning to you. Good morning, good morning. I want to welcome you back to Life Lessons. Life lesson is a daily practice, right? We do it Monday through Thursday. We go through the acronym of life, but this week we started on Tuesday, so that's why I'm here on Self Validation Friday. But life lesson is a part of Project Life, and Project Life is a project that I started in 2025, where we're turning theory into practice, right? And we do that through these many daily sessions. I think I'm on episode 136, right? So this is my 136th episode of Life Lessons. We're in our second season. I think it's like the 23rd episode in the second season. I'm excited about that. We also have the coaching lab, right? So you can come in and practice the things. I always say that we can hear information, but just by the adult learning model, we need to apply that. So the coaching lab, the coaching growth lab, is a safe place for you to practice the lessons that you learn, like if it's boundaries or expressing your emotions and things like that. And then there's other programs that I have, like Elevating Life. I've been a therapist now for 20 years, right? And I don't work as a therapist. I've been trained as a therapist for 20 years, but I work as an emotional strategist and life and business consultant. And I want to welcome you back to Life Lessons. I thank you. People say that money is your most valuable asset, and I just feel like it's your time. So I thank you for investing your time, because guess what? We all get the same 24 hours, right? right? So we have a limited resource, right? This 24 hours, and it's like what you're going to do with it. So for you to take your time to spend it with me, I am grateful for that. So thank you. Thank you. Let's scan our bodies. Okay. I think I forgot to do this yesterday. So as you're thinking about the word that you want to drop in the chat, right? Let's get present in our bodies and let's do a body scan. And again, we're going to imagine the sun over us like it's kind, like this kind sun. This sun that's pouring kindness into our bodies. For me, it's kindness. For you, it could be love, forgiveness, compassion. I just feel like kindness is our first step because kindness is it's kind of like this compassionate way to be, right? And sometimes we can be judgmental, we can be so many things, and I think that we really need to work on being kind to ourselves. So as you would pour a water in a pitcher, it starts to fill up from the bottom first. So we're gonna start to fill our bodies up from our feet, so going up our feet as this sun is warm, this golden sunlight is pouring down into us and putting kindness or activating kindness in every part of our bodies, in every atom, in every cell. We can feel that going up our legs. If you're standing, right? If you're sitting down, just breathing in, this good air, right? As our body activates kindness, right? Up our thighs, filling our butts, up our spines, right? This kindness is coming in, and it's comforting our our organs, right? Our digestive system, our stomachs, right? Just being kind to this body, right, coming up our chest, kind of comforting our heart. Like I said, it's been a lot going on in our communities and our lives. I think that people think that healing is this thing that happens, um, when we were little. But I say, like, healing is something that's a daily practice because things happen to us every day. People say things, life happens, situations happens that in a sense scar us, right? Some unpredictable thing happens that we wasn't prepared for. All right. And so really making this kind of practice where we're scanning our bodies and we're filling ourselves up with kindness and things like that is a part of the healing process, because we're not talking about things that happened years and years and years ago. We could be talking about something that happened this morning, right? That we need to be comforted. So feeling that kindness, comfort your heart. Okay. Down your arms. And again, as it's pouring down your arms, it's starting at the tip of your fingers, right? And just kind of filling up your hands, right? And being kind to our hands, up our arms, up our face. And as it's filling up our face, we feel it coming over as a water, as water would overfill a glass. We're gonna feel that kindness just kind of pour over our largest organ, which is our skin. All right, down, just kind of coating our skin. So good morning, good morning. Drop a word in chat. Let me know how you're feeling on this morning. I'm streaming to a couple of sites. As you guys know, I have been streaming to my Facebook community. And I was having some issues, but now I'm streaming in the group. So good morning, Elevating Life group. If you're not a part of that group, make sure you go join Elevating Life with Sheila Little. You can get the conversations with Sal, the salutations, and things like that. Sal is my mascot. If you haven't already, make sure that you go subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get notifications for anything that I'll be doing. This year, I'm committed to the life lessons, but we do have the Elevating Life podcast and other things that we're going to be bringing to the YouTube channel. Drop a word in the chat. How are you feeling this morning? I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really, really good this morning. Grateful, thankful, blessed, right? Yeah, I'm feeling real good. So let's get into our conversation. Who is this session for today? It's for you. um this for lesson is for you if you want to know why your body is tired from carrying unspoken emotions. It's for you if you want to know how to translate your body's signal or your body's signals into compassion. And it's for you if you're looking for a reason or a way to release emotions that isn't uh, if you want to release emotions and know why releasing emotions is not a form of wisdom, I mean, a form of weakness, it is wisdom, you guys. It is wisdom. All right. So here is my opening question again. What if the fatigue that you feel isn't from doing too much, it's from feeling too little? All right. What if it's from not from doing too much, but from feeling too little? Listen, you've heard get over it. I know a lot of us have heard that. Get over it. You should be grateful, right? But healing doesn't start by getting over things, you guys. It doesn't start by getting over things. It actually starts by getting honest. Okay. So it doesn't start by getting over things. It actually starts by getting honest with yourself about the things, right? That's happening in your life. All right. Your body has been carrying what your heart was never given permission to say, right? All of these years, right? From a child up, your body has been carrying your what you have not, what your heart did not have permission to say. All right. Today, hopefully, we're going to release that, okay? We're going to release that. Here's my why, because you can't affirm yourself while you're avoiding yourself, okay? So there's no way that you can affirm this space and avoid this space at the same time. So self-validation is the moment where you say, I have the right to feel this. I have the right to step into this. I have the right to integrate, to reconcile, right? And I have the right to let this go. All right. So I want you to learn how to listen to your body's language has because it has been right communicating to you through fatigue, through tension, and through tears, right, for years and years and years. And we can, right, you do have the right to release that. Okay, so here's my disclaimer. This lesson is for awareness only, right? It is not to replace any type of therapy. Awareness invites you to feel, okay? All right. So this conversation hopefully is to invite you to feel, and then action is what then frees you. So awareness is the discovery part, and then the actions that we start to take every day starts to kind of unbraid it. So feel it, name it, then seek support, right? If if this weight that you're starting to feel feels a little too heavy for you to hold alone. All right. So remember that these sessions are educational and informational purposes only. All right. It's not therapy or medical advice and does not create a client therapy relationship on this platform. If you want that type of relationship, you can DM me. I do have programs that you can go into. All right. If there's this awareness comes up, I would say please seek professional help if you need personalized attention, if that's for your mental health, which is your overall mental health and well-being, or if it's for a mental illness or anything, right? Growth, business, or whatever. And the reason I encourage that is just because a lot of what you was taught was elementary, right? If you've never in a sense, put yourself in the school of life, right? As you became adult, if you can really ask yourself, what have I intentionally, picked up a book and learned about? What actually sat with a person and talked about like this person that I'm becoming or these desires that I have, and not somebody like in your peer group, but I'm saying an objective person. Do I have a life plan? Right. If I was to look at my life in the 10 categories, in my health, in my money, in my education or learning, in my relationships, in my love of self, in my mental health, my physical health, my spiritual health, right? Where would I grade myself from a 1 to 10, in my physical health? What would I grade myself in a 1 to 10 in my spiritual health? What would I grade myself in a 1 to 10 in my emotional health, right? What would I grade myself a 1 to 10 in my finances? What would I grade myself a 1 to 10 in my relationships? In those relationships could be broken down with my family, and then with my peers and my friendships, and then in my intimate relationships, right? So if I was being graded for my life right now, right, what grade would I be getting, right? And if it's 70% or lower, right, then I may need a tutor. I may need to go get a tutor for this thing called life, right? And that tutor could be my therapist, my coach, right? A mentor, right? Somebody to help me get this grade up. And a lot of us, we want the end, we want the A life, but if you really was to grade yourself, it's like, hey, you know, do you even understand? Right? Do you even understand? All right. So again, who this lesson is for? This is for you if you're tired but can't sleep, if you feel irritable for no reason, if you're numb, right? If you feel numb when you should feel joy, listen, this is for you. If you've been strong for too long and your body is asking for some relief, right? So there is this thing called apathy, right? And it's like, I'm not depressed. It's just like I'm detached from my emotions, right? To the point I don't care anymore, right? It's like I don't have a feeling, right? And so you hear me talk about when you read the book, Stop It Now, and then I have another book coming out. I talk about this apathy, right? This sense of where I'm just on autopilot, right? And it's like I don't even care anymore. I care, like I'm crying and I know this hurt me, but it's like I'm getting over it so fast, or I really don't have time to really focus on that because I gotta do, right? And I'm so much in my doer's energy. All right. So again, our powerful quote: suppressed emotions, they don't disappear. They disguise themselves as fatigue, you guys. So let's talk about it. Your body remembers what your mind tries to forget, you guys. Your body will keep the score. If you ever read that book, that our bodies is storing data, right? And the data that is storing is these emotions. And when I first started Life Lessons, I went through a series where I talked about these neuropeptides, right? And what a neuropeptide is when you actually feel an emotion, there's a chemical that releases in the brain, and it's called a neuropeptide. And that chemical is supposed to like dissolve, it's supposed to leave the body once that emotion is processed. But a lot of times the emotion is not processed, so the chemical stays and it buries itself in our tissue, throughout the tissues or the cells in our bodies, right? All right. So every unhashed tear, every swallowed word, every smile that you hid, right? That you use to hide pain, it's stored somewhere. It is stored somewhere in your body. Listen, this is not you being weak. This is a wiring, right? This is what your body was designed to do because your body is the thing that's communicating to you, right? So when we start to feel, and I know that some people think it's like woo, but it's somatic. We call it somatic, right? So when you start to feel a headache, a big thing to ask is like, okay, is there some emotions or some thoughts tied to that, right? If you start to feel a tummy ache, like, is there some emotions or something tied to that, right? That I'm not allowing myself to express. And sometimes we're just looking for the relief, the Tylenol, the drink, whatever that thing is to relieve it. But are we really releasing it? All right. Listen, your body is trying to protect you by holding on to what you won't release. And I know that you think that that's not the body, like in a sense, like the body is not working for you in that way, but it is, because everything needs to be addressed. Everything needs to be seen. Everything needs to be and accounted for. Okay. That's how sophisticated and I think just thorough God is, right? So no emotion won't go unaccounted for, right? So if you don't, in a sense, acknowledge this emotion, then it's going to find a place in your body to store until you have the time to acknowledge it. And just think about that. We're made in the image of God. And this was coming up for me. I know that there's a scripture that talk about like God knows every strand of hair on your head, right? There's also this thing I heard a man say that that you can count the seed in an apple, but only God can count how many apples can come from one seed, right? So I think that this level of accountability, right, that God has created in the world and created in our body is just so phenomenal. But we can dismiss it, right? In a sense, we think that we can bypass and suppress emotions and they just going to go away, and they don't, and we will keep experiencing situations, circumstances, people, places, and things to that will make that thing come up and see us unless we just unplug. All right. So I had a client that said to me, I can't feel anything anymore. Right. Right. At this point, this was not apathy. That was overload. Her body numbed out. All right. When it carried more than that, it was carrying way more emotions than she could even process. All right. All right. Um, and I talked to her about release um being the option, but the only way that she was going to be able to release that emotion is when she started to feel safe. So again, um, your emotional person, right? These emotions that stored, a lot of times they're imprinted because they didn't feel safe, right? It didn't feel safe to express those. And so we have to create the environment in a sense for that emotion to release. Now, what's coming up in my spirit is an example of if you think about ice, right? So ice, just think about this freezing thing that happens. And if you see ice and you think about some little, I don't know, Skittles in the ice. All right. So this ice has frozen these Skittles into it. You could see the Skittles, right? But the ice has frozen into it until you put that ice in an environment, right, where it can start to thaw, right? You will not be able to get to the Skittles. Okay. Right. We can try to, of course, beat the ice, but in layman's term, right? The ice has to sit in a warm enough environment for it to melt, right? So that we can get to the Skittle. All right. So when you're thinking about safety, think about a warm environment, right? Where your body can thaw enough, where your muscles can relax enough, where your mind can slow down enough, right? For the emotion to release. All right. And a big reason why the emotion is not releasing is because a lot of us are tense. Our minds is going, right? And it's kind of like the emotion is like, I have no place to release here because everything is just tight, right? And so having conversations, being in safe places, getting a therapist, getting a coach, this is a part of us thawing enough so then the emotion can just release. And here's the thing about that ice, right? When it melts enough, right? uh, Eventually the skittle will just fall out of it, right? So there's a part of the meditative experience and there's a part of just safety where you don't have to do anything but just provide the safety, right? Just breathe, just focus on your breath, just and then as you're doing that, right, you can start to feel your body just kind of get lighter, right, and this emotion kind of release. All right, so here's your mirror moment. Before I do that, I want to say I remember a client saying uh, that that they use words or wrote instead of crying tears. It felt productive, but what she found out that it was a form of avoidance, right? And when she finally let herself grieve, her sleep patterns changed. Her skin started to clear up and her energy started to return. Listen, her body healed when her heart could be heard. I put that in there because I do think a lot of us are journaling, right, and we're writing, and that is a good thing to address it. But I want to know, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Are you writing this to avoid the feelings, right, to avoid feelings, or are you writing and journaling as a process of your emotional release? All right, and that's why I bring that up, because I think a lot of times we can be writing stuff and it's still in our head and not really in our bodies, right? And we're not really feeling that stuff. We're just thinking, right? And we really do need to drop down into our body. So here's our mirror moment for today. I want to ask you, this is what I want you to ask yourself: what am I feeling that I don't feel safe to feel? All right. What am I feeling that I don't feel safe to feel? And here's 5 facts that I want you to remember. Emotions are messengers, they're not enemies. All right. Your feelings aren't problems that you have to fix, you guys. They're signals showing you what needs attention and what needs care. All right. And I know that we've learned when we were younger that that your feelings are problems, right? A lot of got whooped because of your feelings, right? A lot of people got in trouble because of how they felt. And so we feel like we need to fix our feelings, but they're not. They're signals, right? They're invitations. And you've heard me talk about, you know, Sadness is in a sense this invitation for what? Like it's looking for a balance. All right. So sadness could be this invitation for comfort or for acknowledgement, right? Pain, right? Feeling the level of pain could be an invitation for what? Some comfort, some joy, right? Loneliness, right? Could be an invitation for what? Connection, right? And it's our responsibility to understand how do we bring balance, right, to our life, right? So if we're feeling sadness and these feelings all the time, then how do I balance that out? And when I find the balance, that is where I can meet happiness, right? It's in the balance. And it's not about avoiding or judging the sadness or the pain, or it's not about judging that or trying to fix that. It's okay, where is the balance, right? Because life happens in a duality. Number two, feeling deeply is not a weakness, right? It's your body's way of really processing your truth, right? So emotions move through your body, allowing them to surface is how you really start to release, right? The pain instead of storing it. All right. Okay. Number three, suppression turns into stress stored in the muscles, in your breath, and in your sleep. All right. When you avoid your emotions, your body will hold them, and your body will hold them as tension, as tightness, as restlessness, and as fatigue. And then that turns into anxiety and depression, and it turns into moods, right? Again, this is not a judgment, it is awareness. I think that our emotions have been the thing that we carry a lot of weight around. What should we feel about? What shouldn't we feel, right? Who should we feel about, right? And I think there's a big thing about like, don't even let that person, you shouldn't be crying about that person, right? In a sense, as if your tears are not justifiable because of the quality of the person that hurt you. I just say hurt is hurt. If the bum hurt you, if it's your mom hurt you, if it hurt, right? We don't have to say, okay, well, whoever it was that did the hurting is going to determine how I process. We just want to acknowledge that it hurt. Now, the level, right, or how long it stays with us, I'm sure, yes, we can manage that. But hurt is hurt at the end of the day. All right. Especially if now, and it's a message. So if a bum say something to you, or somebody that you have no relationship with say something to you, and it hurts you, or charges you in a way, I'm gonna say charges you in a way, then we know that that's a wound, right? And it has nothing to do with that individual, that stranger that said it. It has everything to do with how you feel about you, and that's your signal, right? Your wound saying, hey, we need to address this. All right. Instead of trying to beat the person up or go after that person here, right? When they said that thing to you, right? Depending on how you respond, is your body's messages and saying, it's your body messenger saying, hey, this is a tender spot for us. Let's address it. Let's talk about it. Let's get somebody to talk about this. All right. Um, Number four, tears are psychological release. All right. They literally flush your stress hormone. They literally flush your stress hormones from your body. So tears are good. All right. Crying is science. And the soul is science and your soul working together. All right. It balances your chemistry and soothes your nervous system. Right. So tears are literally flushing your stress hormones. So it's okay to cry. All right. Now I know, like I said, I don't know if y'all know the story, but you know that song, "Cry Baby Cry, weep your eye, put your hands on your hip, let your backbone slip, oh shake it to the east." Thinking, no, it was a song though by a guy, and he talked about here come your mama with your three little guys, I think. Well, anyway, my auntie them sung that song to me every day, right? Because I was a crybaby. And so what that made me do is really start to judge this emotion of tears. Like, I just don't want to cry. I don't want to be judged for crying. I'm going to get so hard, right, that I just refuse to cry. But crying was a natural part of who I was. You know how people are just like naturally criers and naturally communicators and things like that. And I do feel like by me not crying for like it was years before I cried, by me not crying like that, I do feel like my body started to store a lot of that, and it took on this kind of like apathetic state where I just stopped caring. And then one day I was working. I had already started my own business. I was working and I woke up and I felt it felt like little pins was like literally sticking me like I was yeah, it was like these little pins was like sticking me all over my body. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like I call into work. I called my assistant at the time. I think Tamilka was working at the office at the time. And I'm like, "Hey, I don't think I'm gonna be able to come in. I'm not feeling good." I got in the tub. It was like it made it even worse. Like I just felt like my body had just like it was on fire, you know? And I got out the bed and I just remember just bursting out crying, like crying. And it was like nothing in particular that happened. I just started to cry. And from that day, I'm like, okay, I think these are tears that I have built for a long time. Now, mind you, those are tears after graduation, after kids, after breakups, after building a business, after quitting my job, after all of foreclosure, like all of that stuff I just hadn't cried about. And that one day, right, it just happened. And I do feel like it flushed so much out of me. Like I was tired after that. But I vow like I'm just not gonna allow myself to get to that point where I stuff myself so much with so much emotion that just one day, right, I'm literally my body like we can't take it no more, just shut down. Right. And so I want you to know that crying is science. Okay. Crying is science. And one of the things that I keep and if you've been to my office, I keep um, like the tissues in my office because most people who come see me, they cry. Right. In some way, shape, or form, there's an emotional release that happens. I'm like, yes, this is a good thing. Right. This is a good thing. And I do I think that one, they feel safe enough to do that. But I do think that we're talking about things in those sessions that they probably haven't talked about before. Then number 5, permission to feel is the first step to permission to heal. And that is what the tagline is today. Listen, you can't heal what you refuse to feel. So giving yourself emotional permission opens the door for really restoration, right? For you to start to restore. All right. You get that? Okay. Okay. All right. So, in short, feeling doesn't make you fatigue, you guys. It makes you free. But when we suppress, it's like we start to build weight, and that is where the fatigue starts to come. And those are where the dis-ease starts to come. So, here's some insight I want to share with you. You're wrestling with emotional permission. You're wrestling with emotional permission, the belief that feelings make you fatigue, all right? In a sense that I don't want to deal with that. I don't have time to feel that right now, right? And you keep pressing these feelings back because you feel like you just don't have space and room for that. But I want to bring some awareness up to you. I want you to know that denial can drain you. All right. All right. The energy it takes to pretend is the energy that your body actually can be using for its recovery. All right. All right. I had a client say, when I finally let myself cry, I felt so lighter. Physically, I felt lighter. All right. And then research shows this and supports this because it says that emotional suppressant increases cortisol levels in fatigue, while emotional expression, though, boosts the immune functioning. All right. So when we suppress our emotions, our stress hormone spikes. But when we actually release our emotions, we actually build a stronger immune system you know? And a stronger immune system is what you want, isn't it? Right? Especially in this world, right? We want our immune system to be on point, right? So we have to get back in tune to our emotions. All right. So today we're talking about energy and emotions, releasing this weight in the body. All right. And here's 10 things I really need you to know about energy and emotions. Your body keeps a score of every unspoken emotion. So unfelt emotions, they don't just disappear, you guys. They stay stored in your body until you face them. All right. And a lot of people are not facing them because their nervous system just doesn't feel safe enough to face them. And it's been programmed. And I'm saying, hey, you as the adult, right, can go in and reprogram your nervous system. All right. By getting a coach, by getting a therapist, by therapist, by working on some things, by having some of those difficult conversations, changing your perspective, right? Learning a level of emotional intelligence. There's so many ingredients, right, that comes with it. And then those ingredients come together to create like a beautiful life. All right. But know that your body keeps the score, even when you're not talking about that. All right. Number two, fatigue is often emotional weight disguised as tiredness. So you're not always physically tired, you guys. Sometimes you're emotionally drained from holding on to too much on the inside. Number three, avoidance feels like relief, but functions like resistance, you guys. So no avoidance can feel like relief, but it functions like resistance. Ignoring emotions uh, can help you in a moment, but it blocks your real healing long term. All right. And again, I just feel like we just don't have time. Right. I just don't have time to feel that. I just don't have time to deal with that right now. I gotta go to work. I gotta take care of my kids. I gotta, do this. I gotta do that. And it's like, yeah, that's some short-term relief, right? But it's gonna have a long-term impact. So how about we make the time? All right. How about we make the time for us? Because here's the thing, we want other people to make the time for us. And we judge other people for not making the time for us. But when it's time for us to make the time for us, we won't make the time for us. Right. And so we have to learn how to make the time for us. All right. Emotional release isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. So crying, shaking, listen, feeling deeply isn't falling apart. Okay. It isn't falling apart. It's your body letting go of what's heavy. Right. It's your body letting go. And I think that sometimes, we've seen the person, the stories like the woman in the, bathroom floor crying, right? And she's like, oh, I'm falling apart, right? And I just think we need to see that differently. That's your body letting go of what's heavy because you didn't do it, right? So I talked about how my body, right, these pins, like I felt like pins was just sticking me, right? And when I got in the shower, like I had a jacuzzi, and like I was like, oh, I'm gonna just go soak in the jacuzzi. And I turned that jacuzzi on, it just felt like my skin was so tender. It just was like so much pain. And I was like, oh my gosh, I jumped out of it. Right. But I do feel like that was my body just releasing away. And I thank my body for that. I thank my body for doing what I didn't have the courage to do at the time. And if my body wouldn't have stepped in and did that for me on that day, or if I wouldn't have got the message, right, I do think it probably would have turned into a breakdown after that, right? So I was very grateful. And I think, that is the day I wrote the book, The Dream That Broke Me Down to Stand Me Up. Because when I got through with that, what happened was I got out the tub, I got in the bed, I called Nick home. He was, at the time, we were co-parenting. I was dating an individual, I called them. Um, and when everything settled down, I heard a voice say, okay, now that was something like, that's the dream that broke you down to stand you up. And I'm like, wow, because at this time, like I'm really pursuing this dream of being a entrepreneur and building a business and things like that. And it was like, now I want you to write about it. And I was like, yeah, that ain't gonna happen. And it just tugged on me and tugged on me, tugged on me. And I wrote that book, I think within 24 hours or 24 to maybe 2 days, that book was wrote. And I just wrote about that whole experience that brought me to that breakdown. If you want a copy of the book, just put it in the DM me and I can send you a copy of it. But it's called The Dream That Broke Me Down to Stand Me Up. All right. Number five, the nervous system regulates through emotion, not suppression. So you calm your body by expressing what's real, not pretending that everything's fine. Remember, there's a witness in your body, okay, that is watching you, okay, that is the observer. That is the observer. That is, saying, okay, are we going to tell the truth today? Are we going to be honest? Are we, and it's trusting, it's putting this trust in you or not, right? And how you show up being the driver of the car, right? In those moments, good, bad, or indifferent, no matter how you feel, right? How integritous you show up is when this witness will start to like trust you. And I say that witness could be like your nervous system, like your subconscious mind, like it's so many things that I think we can call this witness, right? But it's literally just watching and it's taking data and it's kind of like saying, okay, how are you going to handle this situation? Right. Right. And I think we need to really take that serious, especially as adults, because at that point we're training ourselves if they can trust us or not, right? We're training our bodies to know that if it's safe or not. Okay. So in when we start to do that, then it's easier to start to really express our feelings and not suppress them. All right. Number 6, grief, right? Grief is love with nowhere to go. All right. So grief is love with nowhere to go. So let's learn how to move it. So one of the I'm going to have a whole week on grief, right? Um but grief is love with nowhere to go. Grief shows how deeply you care. All right. So allowing it to flow honors what you have loved or what you do love. And we talk about grief, we're not even talking about grief of a person who passed away, but a lot of us are grieving relationships. A lot of us is grieving a life that we thought we was going to have and we didn't have. A lot of us is grieving an experience that we wanted that we didn't get. Right. So grief is not just associated to death. Like a lot of people are living in grief, right? Because they thought that they were going to be at this job, or they thought they was going to be living at this house, or they thought that they were going, and those thoughts, they're grieving those things. But instead of allowing those things to move through you, right, and acknowledging the love and the care that you have about it, and talking about it, and allowing it to release, we hold on to it. We hold on to it. All right. All right, and we don't let it flow through us, and then that grief end up being the heaviness that we carry. All right, and a big part of the weight that we carry in our life. All right, number 7, your tears are chemical releases for hormones. I talked about this earlier. Science calls it homeostasis. All right, crying is your body's natural way to balance itself and return to calm. All right. Number 8, prayer, breath, and movement help your body complete the stress cycle. All right. So, faith, slow breathing, and gentle movement is your way to say we are safe now. So you see people rocking, right? Just kind of moving, flowing, breathing, right? These are things that we can do, right, to really allow our body to come to a calm. All right, to a calm. All right. Number 9, release creates joy. All right. Release actually creates room for joy to return. So when you start to let go of the pain, you make space for peace and happiness again, you guys. All right. And I think that that's just it, right? A lot of us are not experiencing the happiness, the fulfillment, the joy, and things, and the gratitude that we want to feel, because we have this bottleneck of pain that we haven't released or let allowed to move through us. And a big part of life is moving that pain through us so that we can feel these other emotions, with the acknowledgement and the understanding that because life happens to us all, that I may experience some pain again, but I can trust, right? Remember, we talked about this. I'm going to trust that I'm going to be okay. Okay, I'm going to be okay. And then last but not least, releasing emotions doesn't mean that you are losing control, you guys. It means that you're regaining, all right, connection to yourself. So letting feelings move through you is how you actually come home to yourself, right? And that coming home to yourself is like the most honest thing you can do, the most whole thing you can do, and then the most freeing thing you can do. All right. Now, I do want to give this caveat. Emotions is like any other relationship. We learn how to be in relationship with our emotions. All right. We learn how to build different relationships with our emotions. And that is a learning curve. It's not something that you should know, right? Or that you should just know. It's a learning process, right? It's something that you may need someone to hold a space for you for, right? In the beginning, right? But just know that it can happen. You can build a different relationship. So in short, holding it all in keeps you heavy, you guys. All right. But releasing what hurts is how you start to make room for healing. And when you start making room for healing, that's how we start to make room for joy. All right. For joy. All right. Good morning, Erica. Erica said, me. Now I hate for people to see me crying. All right. She said, I'm off a little today. It's my mom's birthday. Well, I'm sending my condolences and my support to you, Miss Erica. I know you and your mom had a beautiful relationship, right? And talking about grief, right? Allowing that space for you to recognize the feelings that you're having for your mom fully, right? Um, and I think that when we can allow grief to move through us, then we can go back to the times of the good times, right? And so at some point, we start to smile when we reflect and we remember, right? And that's the one thing about allowing emotions to move through us, because when we do, then it makes room for joy and happiness in those times of remembrance when, when your mom and you probably laugh for 15 minutes. All right. All right. But I'll be praying for you, and hopefully the community will be praying for you as well. All right. And so she said, now I hate for people to see me cry. And most people do. And most people do hate for people to see them cry. So let's talk about that. A big part of the reason why people hate for people to see them cry is why? Because when you cry when you were younger, 9 times out of 10, you got teased, right? 9 times out of 10, something happened that communicated to the brain that it's not safe to cry in front of people. So you got teased, you got whooped, something happened that told the signal to the brain that this is not safe. So the easier way now for us to say that as adults is, I just hate for people to see me cry. But it's really, I don't feel safe, right? Crying in front of people, because I don't really know how they're going to um so the first layer would be, I don't really feel safe with crying in front of people because we don't really know how they're going to respond, right? So I would just rather cry alone. So that's one layer. And then we start to blossom that out, right? So what if crying in front of people is how we, in a sense, see who fits where, right? So maybe it's the message. So I'm gonna cry, and the people who comfort me, those that's sending a message like, oh, okay, it is people that's safe to cry around. That's rewiring the brain, right? And then there may be some people who like, oh, don't cry, don't, I just, and that's going to send a message that, okay, these are people that I don't feel, that are not comfortable with my emotions. I don't have to judge them, but what that gave me was new data, right? That I can update, right? My thought process, that it is safe, that people will comfort me in my tears and things like that. And that's what we want to look for. All right. All right. Because like I said, I think that when we cry when we were younger, there was a lot of judgments around it. And so the brain is so sophisticated that it's not going to say that now at the adult age. It's just going to say, I don't like crying around people. Right. It's a very vulnerable space to be. And sometimes it's just a more safe thing. All right. A more safe thing to be. All right. Let's go into our biblical wisdom. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat for me. Okay. Let's go into our biblical wisdom. So today is Psalms 34:18. The Lord is near to a broken heart. All right. The Lord is near to a broken heart. All right. So this verse is not about God pitying you from afar, you guys. It's about God, the God within you. Okay. Becoming present in your pain. All right. Becoming present in your pain. So your tears are not rejection, you guys. They're recognition, and they're a signal for closeness. All right. And again, I just want to support that with neuroscience. Crying and sharing pain releases oxytocin levels and endorphin. Okay. So it releases oxytocin and endorphin. These hormones, or these chemicals, they soothe your nervous system, right? And they create the feeling of God nearness. Now, when this endorphin and this oxytocin is released, right, this is the connection hormone. So again, when we cry, we naturally, hormonally, chemically is releasing a chemical that is drawing connection to us. All right. Right. So that's why when we see a kid cry, we tend to hug. When we see people cry, we tend to comfort them. Right. It is a hormonal thing. All right. And so this is why we have to give ourselves permission to do this. And science is supporting what God is saying, like, hey, the Lord is near to a broken heart. So when you're brokenhearted, there is a chemical release that happens that actually activates oxytocin and endorphin levels. Those levels soothe the nervous system. And then there's this feeling of God near me that happens in the body. All right. The promise verse. He restores my soul. You know, I love this 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. My shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lay down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. All right. Listen, restoration happens after release, you guys. So when you allow yourself to feel, you actually create a space for renewal. Okay. So the God within you restores you through, restores you not through resistance, but through rest. Again, how do we know this is true? Emotional expression, neuroscience says emotional expression activates the parasympathetic nervous system, restoring balance and reducing stress, right? The biological experience of he restores my soul. What else happens when we cry and when we allow ourselves to experience emotion? Anybody know? You get sleepy, right? It's the restoration. When you go through an emotion of crying and tears and things like that, it's as if the body is like, okay, we've released that. Now let's restore. Let's go into rest. And sometimes you don't get a good rest until you release the emotion, until you get the good cry. And then it's like, oh, you just go to sleep in the midst of anything, right? So I want to ask you this. So again, he restores my soul. Biologically, it is designed for us, right? When we release, right? When that this restoration happens after our release. All right. All right. So again, emotional expression actually activates the parasympathetic system, restoring balance and reducing stress. And again, that restoration happens, and we know it because a lot of times we fall asleep, or when you see a baby and the baby is crying, you're like, "Oh, that baby gonna get some good sleep tonight," right? Right? So crying is a part of the full cycle of healing, and crying is the thing that allows us to restore and get the rest that we need. And a lot of us are not resting at night and things like that because we're not allowing the emotion to be felt. All right. So here's my question to you. How does allowing yourself to feel become an act of faith instead of fear? All right. All right. And let's put this all together as we wrap up this series. I thank you so much for being with me as I talked about the weight that we carry in life. And this week we talk about the wrestle, right? The wrestle with our love of self, right? That fight that we have with our love of self, that fight that we have when we go to interact with people, especially in our healed life, that wrestle or that fight that we have when we're trying to control everything, right? And we need to change our focus, right? Change our focus to the things that we can control and allow life to step in, right? And surrender. Remember, I talked about surrender yesterday being like the stem surrenders, right? So the petals can grow. The root surrenders so that the trunk can grow, right? So surrendering is not this, I'm raising a white flag. Surrendering is this, okay, I'm letting go so that you can, right? Dot, dot, dot. I'm letting go so that God can, dot, dot, dot. I'm letting go so my mate can, dot, dot, dot. So even when we talk about surrendering in our relationships, be it our friendships or our mate, I'm surrendering. I'm stepping back so that you can, dot, dot, dot. Right, that is not a weakness. That is a very empowering place to be, and it's allowing. Okay, and we wrestle with that though, right? That we have a thing where we want to control every element of life, and it's like, no, we can't do that. We have to learn how to surrender. All right, and then today we talked about this wrestle with releasing our emotion and allowing us to feel. All right, a lot of us has been stuck in emotions for years, a pain that we probably can't even articulate. We just know what it feels like in our body, but we don't have the words for it. And that pain is stopping us from experiencing true joy, true happiness, true peace, right? The things that we desire. And so I just charge you on today to get a coach, get a therapist, right? So that you can alleviate some of the fight that you have and some of the resistance that you have, right? With this wrestling, right? Wrestling with our life. Okay. All right. So how do we put this into practice? I want you to pause today and I want you to name what you feel without judging it. All right. Number two, I want you to find one space, a one safe place a one safe way to release it, either through talk, through journal, through cry, through movement, or through prayer. All right. And then I want you to 3, notice how your body responds when you stop holding everything in. All right. Here's your journal prompt for today. What emotion feels unsafe for you to express? And where do you feel that in your body? All right. Your affirmation for today: it's safe for me to feel, and it is safe for me to heal. I want you to say that. It is safe for me to feel, and it is safe for me to heal. Okay. And then our intention for today, I choose to release. I choose release over resistance. And then our bonus challenge: every time you feel emotions rise, I want you to say out loud, I can let this move through me. All right. Don't block it. Just breathe, right? Just breathe it through. All right. Again, doing some breath work, breathing through some things, I think is a great way that we get back connected with ourselves. And remember, this is a lifelong journey. All right. This is something that we're going to experience all throughout our life. So it's not this one and done thing. All right. And then we have the ebbs and flow of life. But I think about, as we ebb and flow, there's still an ascension process. So you're never going to drop as low as you are today, right? You're going to have some ups and downs, but you'll never get back here. Right. And that's the beauty thing about life when we live intentionally. What I was thinking about as I was talking, if you guys ever watched Harriet Tubman movie, and she was going to say the slaves, and she was like with her brother and them, and they wanted to turn around. They was like, we at the river, and you don't know what you're talking about. And so she started to walk through the water, right? And at some point, like, you know how deep this water is, but she had just said she did this prayer, and she was like, God, allow this water to move through me, right? And it's one of the things I teach my sons, right? I can tell when their emotions is like heavy on them, like they get like all shrunk over. And I say, learn how to let that move through you. Feel it, acknowledge it, and then let it go. Now, the caveat is, some things it's going to take a minute to let go, and some things it's going to take a month to let go. And some things it may take 6 months to let go. But here's the intention. The intention is to let it go. Right. And some of us are saying, I don't want to let it go. I don't know how to let it go. Right. And we're using language that's keeping it stuck. So we have to say, start asking ourselves, how can I let this go? What do I need to do to let this go? How can I release this? And that may be something that you need to do every day. Okay. All right. But you're safe now at this grown age of an adult to start releasing, Okay. If you need help with that, you already know that you can join Project L.I.F E, where we have the coaching labs, right? So you do that at sheilittle.com/life. And then I got that call to challenge that charge for you. I'm calling them, asking, what truth did your body teach you today? Your challenge is give yourself permission to feel without explaining it. And then your charge is to go shape your life with freedom as your fuel. You guys, my closing remark for this week is, you don't have to hold it all together to be whole. All right. Release is how you return back to yourself. All right. So just learning how to release, right? Learning how to let go. All right. And then I want you to know that feeling is not failure. It is a form of our freedom, you guys. And when you release what you've been holding on to for so long, you actually start to make room to breathe again, to feel again, to see things in a different way. All right, to see things in a different way. So again, you can join our community at sheilittle.com/life. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you join the Elevating Life community. And remember this: if you can shape it in your mind, you can have it in your life. Okay. I love you. I love you. I love you. Next week, we're talking about the weight we carry. We're on the exhaustion, right? The weight we carry, the weight of overfunctioning. All right. Overfunctioning, our love of self, our interactions with others, our focus and emotions. We're talking about it on next week. So know that I love you. I love you. I love you. And I will see you next week for those life lessons. Till later.